What's up guys, Callum from Westwood Table Soccer here, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome once again to the Painting Academy Feyenoord 1958-59, sponsored by Santiago Table Soccer. What a week we have had here at Westwood Table Soccer. I have now filmed this 3 times. Week 1 had all the figures, all 10 of them, loads of time lapses, loads of really cool stuff for you to see. Copied it onto my computer. Don't know what happened, all got deleted, lost it all. Hence why we are a day late. Earlier on today, I painted 2 brand new figures. I filmed it all over again. Not as many time lapses, there wasn't as much time lapsing to do, but I filmed it all over again. Copying it over onto my computer, all gone again. This is 3rd time lucky I had to paint another figure. But in this episode, we have got so much stuff for you guys to see. We are going to be using our acrylic white 34. We're going to be using our matte 33. We are going to be using our 153 red. We're going to be using our 154 yellow. And we're also going to be using our matte 80. Everything gets used for this episode, guys. So get them all ready. Get yourselves comfortable. It's going to be a good one. I also show you guys some extra little bits about how to use white acrylic for touch-ups for the collars and the sock hoops as well, so stay tuned for that if you have any issues. As always, as you're watching this, if you have any questions, get them in the comments. Find us on Twitter, fire us over an email. You can comment whenever you want. If you enjoy the video, smash that like button. If you are new to the channel and you haven't yet, get on the old subscribe button that is over here. That is the rest of the intro done. I don't even know why I'm still here. Let's roll it. Here we go then, 2 brand new painted figures. So I'm going to have a Feyenoord team that has 12 players in it. 13 actually, if we include this guy too. So I've got a big squad for this Feyenoord, but it doesn't matter. What we're going to be doing first and foremost, everyone, is getting on the badge. Probably one of the hardest things, it's one of the things I get asked about more than anything else, is how do I create badges? There isn't a quick fix. This will show you how I do it, but it's not necessarily going to be the one thing that you see and all of a sudden you can paint badges. Okay, I've been trying to put badges on kits for over 20 years. It takes a lot of time. It's really difficult. So don't worry if it's not exactly the same as mine or not exactly how you have it in your head. Let's just give it a bash. Let's try and get to what we need to get to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this guy out of the way. We're going to work on this guy first. This is where, everyone, our matte acrylic comes in. Now I know what you're thinking already. Hang on a minute, Cal. It's a white side of the shirt. Why are we using white? This is probably my biggest tip for you guys in this series. When it comes to painting badges, okay, paint yourself a base color down, even if it's white on white, because this white will be a different shade to the white plastic. You'll see this, it'll be difficult, it won't be clear, it won't be 100% clear, but it will be there and it gives you that basis. With circle badges, 100% use this because it's easier to paint a blob circle than it is to try and paint the simple outline of a circle, okay? It just is. So what I'm going to do, quickly going to pause this, I'm going to shake this up and get some white acrylic ready for you guys so you can see how we're going to get on. So, are you ready for a jump cut? You won't even notice this happening. Here we go then. So, what we're going to do, and get our figure here, we're going to get ourselves some paint on the brush, and what I need to do is just create a circle with my white acrylic. Just like that. So there's one. I'm going to come back onto our second one. So I've created my circle in here, and I appreciate that it's really difficult to see, but there is a white circle now, and you can tell it's a slightly different shade to what we have going on the rest. That is the first thing I would always say to anyone who's painting a badge, especially, well, any shape actually. Try and create yourself a base to work from. If it's on a coloured background, I would still paint it white, because it's going to give me the shape that I need, and I can build my colours and my shapes up around inside that white space templated area, and then fill in the colours that I need to. So that's how we do it. The next thing we're going to do, okay, is go onto our black, and we're going to outline our round badge in black. Now the actual club crest has a gold and a black band around it, and again, this is another top tip when it comes to painting badges. The gold band isn't needed, okay? It doesn't add anything from a distance. When you get close, you'll notice it, but what can happen is the more colours and the more lines you add, the busier something looks, the more chance of it looking a mess something's going to look. So we're not going to bother. We're just going to go with a black band or black outline around here. So I'm just going to get my black ready, and then we'll be ready to go. So now what we're going to do is get onto our black here. Now, the reason we're going to outline in black first and not go for the red half is if we make our red half and it goes outside of the white boundary, it's going to be really obvious, and it will mean you'll need a bigger black area. So what we're going to do is we want to have our brush in a really pointy setup on the end. We don't need a lot of paint. There's a tiny little bit of paint in the brush. Okay, and then what we're going to do is, I always start at the top middle and I drag left first. And all I'm looking to do is trace onto or around that white area that I've already made. And there we go. We have ourselves the bases for our final badge. We've got obviously one more to do. We'll show you that one quickly and we'll come on to the next stage. So as I showed you there, does not need a lot of paint. I start middle, I go left and round, I then go back to the middle and I come around the other way and I join them up. Trying to keep equal pressure. Obviously if you push too hard, you're going to end up with thicker lines. So equal pressure as we go around. And all we're doing, because we're following the difference in colour between white plastic and now white acrylic, you can see and you can now create a nicer circle. So let's go on to, all right, so now we're going to go on to our second figure here. So we're going to come around and just create that circle again, starting at the top in the middle, coming round the left hand side as we go down there, coming back up to the top, coming round and joining onto there like that. So now what we have is two basic badge outlines for this Feyenoord kit. While I've got this, all right, red is mixed, so let's move him out of the way there. This bit, nice and easy. Okay, what you're looking to do is create a divide down the center of this. Now obviously what the other thing, or the main thing you're either going to need to worry about is, one, stopping your lines by the black line, so not going through them, not going over them. The second thing to think about is that the paint on the outside of your brush that goes over into this side of it needs to be your outside edge, so you want to bring yourself back slightly. So what we're going to do really quickly is I'm going to create the half and half divide for you. So there is number 1. Nice and simple. So I start at the top, I drag down. I wasn't able to get all the way to the bottom, but that wasn't an issue. So then I started to build around the edge of the circle, and then eventually you can bring yourself around and just fill in the gaps, and then just fill in the rest of the red. So we're going to show you this next one in real time, but I'm not going to speak as I'm doing it, but it's exactly the same process as before. And now we are getting ourselves a very, very tidy looking badge, and we're starting to see this team now get closer and closer within a few steps of being complete. So there we go, guys. 2 badges pretty much done. All we need to do is we're going to let that red dry a little bit. And obviously for you guys, this is going to be a simple jump cut. For me, it's probably going to be about half an hour. It's quite warm in here under the light, so that paint will be dry enough to add this next colour onto within about, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes. So I will see you guys really, really shortly. Awesome, so back we come. Now what we have got out now is our matte 154 yellow. So this is the final step, and it's a very, very easy one to mess up. So with this one, it's a take your time situation. Now I've got a tin of 154 that's very loose, it's very thin, so it can be a little bit tricky to work with. So what we want to do is we now want to create our F. Now, the start of the F, or the back of the F, comes down into the red and goes over into the white on the top bar and the middle bar. What we're going to start with is that first line that comes down. Now, as I've said, this is not an easy thing to get right. It requires a very, very light touch and not a lot of paint. So let's go. So I've added my first yellow. Very, very difficult to see straight away, but it is there. And what I want to do now, after bringing this one down, is bring my top bar across. Like so. So now my top bar has gone across, and now all we need to do is get that little middle bar in there. And there he is. So we now have our Feyenoord badge completed on this guy. As I said, it's not an easy thing to do. It does require a really, really light touch to get it to work correctly, but can be done. So what we're going to do, again, is we're going to come through the second figure. We're not going to talk through it. We're just going to go through and show you us painting it in real time. So there we go. That is it, guys. That is creating a Feyenoord badge. That's how we create badges. That's how we do all of our badges in a roundabout way. That is it. I mean, hopefully that little bit of information for this section has been useful. It's going to help you guys on with how to create and paint your badges for this team. But that's where we are with this one. What we're going to come on. Wait a minute. What? Why are these guys completely finished? Would you believe me if I told you I filmed it all again, copying it all onto my computer, and I lost it all again? Because that's what happened. So we've had to get another guy. So I now have like 4 spare figures to go through again. So you'd hope by this point I'm going to be really, really good at this stage of the tutorial. Now, luckily for me, the crest section of the tutorial was backed up. So this is exactly where we left you. What I'm also going to cover in this is creating the collar using the acrylic white, and also if you had any areas, particularly down on these sock areas, that you needed to just even up the white down there. So I'm going to use it as an opportunity to show you guys that stuff there. What you probably will find is if you use white here, you're going to have to use white here, else it looks too odd. This area being in white is not going to be an issue, so don't worry about having to paint this whole white space here in white. So round 3, let's go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, to start with, on the socks, how to just put in those bands in between. So if you have any areas in your socks where your bands are particularly close, all you need to do, get a little bit of white acrylic, and just thread it in between your 2 red lines. Now with this, obviously brush setup wise is a point, and in terms of the amount of paint that you need, not a lot, but hopefully you'll be able to see what I mean about the difference in shade in between the 2 whites. When they're really close to each other or in small areas, it's really obvious. This top hoop is white acrylic, this bottom one is negative white space, and what it does is it makes this negative white space look a really dull white. So you do have to, even if you've only got one, you are going to find yourself having to probably do the entire team if you want it to look the same, which isn't ideal. It is going to be another set of time. It's another 4 bands per figure, which then equates to being 40 bands. So by the time you do this, you'd have done 100 sock hoops for one team. Obviously my actual figures that I painted on the original time I made this video are negative space, so they're not white acrylic, but I do remember somebody asking me about this, and I was going to do a separate video for it, but seeing as I've recorded this video as many times as I have, I thought, you know what, let's use this guy as an opportunity to show you guys how to fix it and show you the difference that it makes. So you just want to come around, as I said, and just thread that white acrylic in between your 2 red areas, like so. So there we have the white added in. On this leg in particular, you can just see down in this area there's an extra bit of red, but we're going to clear that with our black when we come round in a minute. So that is how you would just cover it in white acrylic. What I am going to do what we're going to do is we're now going to create that collar using the white acrylic. Okay, so in the earlier videos and in my figures, then I have left my collar using negative white space. On this figure, the negative white space here is nowhere near where it needs to be in terms of size in relation to being the same as its counterpart on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our white acrylic paint to create it. So making sure we're in shot. It's the same as making it with the red. Okay, so it's not any different. It's not like a totally new process, but so the first thing we're going to do is exactly the same as we did when we created our red one, and we're just going to drag a straight V line up. The second thing I need to do is try and bring this line down so that it creates a proper straight edge in between the halves and to divide the collars. In there, like so. So now we have a nice crisp divide between our two halves, and then the shape on the actual winged section wasn't actually too far off, so it's not too bad. So basically just want to trace that round so that we get the right colours and the right balance. Just in there like so. Coming around the back of his head here, again there's a slight overlap of the red collar to the red half, so what I want to do is try and bring that away. Using the white acrylic, so if I can delete a little bit of that red, and replace it with the white, what I'm going to need to do is just bring a little bit more red down, just to really clean that up. And the thing I mentioned earlier on in the video was, now you'll notice that this now looks super bright. It just makes this smaller area of white look dull. The bigger areas of white, don't paint them. So all I want to do now is just go and fill in along this white cuff line that we created earlier, that we left as negative space, and there's nothing wrong with it in terms of it being negative space, but because it's a small white area, and now what we have is a small white area in the collar that's a really bright painted acrylic white, it does show up as looking a little bit dull and a little bit off in terms of colour. So we've got to fill it in. Like so. So now what we have is our white space, our white collar painted in acrylic, a white cuff line, we've got our white infills here. Again, like I said, all I'm going to do very quickly is just grab some red for the back of the collar. Alright, so we've got ourselves our red back out here, and all we're going to do, really simple step, it's just a case now of just trying to equal off and even up the appearance on the back of this shirt. Again, a tiny bit of paint, a real pointy brush is what's required here, and all we're going to do is just look to square this back off like that. Very easy, and we just want to equal up the thickness of the collar around the back of the shirt with a tiny bit of red. Very small, but can make a lot of difference between creating something that you're really happy with and something that just doesn't quite look right aesthetically. So there we have covered quite a few different things that we haven't done on our main team. So just to summarize off, we filled in our white spaces on our socks in white acrylic. Some people, I did get asked the question, how do you do it? How do you remove extra overpaint? You can do it with those. As I mentioned though, if you have to do it on one figure, depending on how symmetric and how equal you want these to be, you are then going to have to do it on the other 10. So it is going to add 40 extra sock hoops you're going to have to do. But if you do it and you get it right, it's going to make all the difference between what you had before and what you're going to have at the end. The other thing that we covered in this little section of the video then is creating our white collar, our white split V wing using white acrylic paint as opposed to leaving negative space. Now earlier in the video you'd have seen this guy, this little white negative space here was far too small, so we equaled it up, we evened it out with the red on the other side. The shape we had here was pretty much fine, but we had to equal it up, so we brought out some white acrylic here. Then let's just turn him around really quickly. We came to the back of the collar where we brought our white round and we just brought it back over because this red had come over too far. Brought it round, it was a bit thicker, so we've just literally come around with a little bit more red, squared this off, and then made the densities or the thicknesses of this collar line and this exactly the same. And the only other thing that we covered in this video is by painting our cuff in white acrylic paint as well. And the reason we did that is because when you only paint a small white area here in white acrylic and you leave a small white area, it just makes the colour look off as you look at it. So in terms of the difference between the two figures that we've got here, you will be able to see the difference that the white space collar and the acrylic white collar make. So on this side here we've got the negative left white space in white plastic and the cuff line as well, and on this one we've got that bright white acrylic finish and the bright white acrylic finish here. Slightly different sock design on this figure than the ones you will see in the video. This is an option for you guys, so let's just talk about that now. Okay, so I've just moved the figure we were painting out of the way because what I want to do is show you guys the different sock options you could take to complete this team. Now, the reason I've used a goalkeeper here is because I painted this for this video. Unfortunately, that bit of footage is gone, but it does show you one of the sock options that you've got. So, our first figure here is exact copy of what the actual kit had. So we've got our 3 red sock bands which you guys have been painting along with. So that's one option. If you're really not happy with and you're not comfortable with how they look, you can then maybe try out one of these 2 options. You can do the Subutio option, which is just to do a red band with a white band underneath and then do black. Nothing wrong with it. As you can see, it looks great with the team. It works really nicely, and it's what a Ref 85 looked like when Subutio did it. The other option you have, and it's what I've done on the keeper, both keepers actually, because I have painted the keepers twice and now have 2 final goalkeepers basically in the same kit. I've got a red band, a white, and then another red. So I've just gone with 2 sock hoops rather than the 3. The main reason for doing that is just the size of the socks are a little bit different on a goalkeeper than they are on the outfield players. They're not as long. The legs are a little bit thicker because they're a thicker build, because obviously they're making saves. They've got to put up with the impact of being hit with a ball. So these are the 3 sock options you can go with, and any one of these will look great on the figure. So in front of me here then are 3 goalkeepers, and the reason there's 3 goalkeepers here is, one, to prove to you that I have painted 2 keepers exactly the same, one of which was simply because I lost all of my filming from last week, so I painted it again, filmed it, and lost it all again this week. So that's good. I now have 2 keepers for Feyenoord, one of which, this middle guy, which we painted today, is actually a super footy goalkeeper, but he's wearing the same kit. So I had an idea, and the reason there's a yellow goalkeeper here is twofold. The first one, or the main reason he's here, is because some of you guys may not have bought the matte 80 paint. You might not have seen the point in it, and you might have been thinking to go with the matte 33 black shirt, which will still look great. Okay, that'll still look awesome. But the other thing is, obviously I told you guys for the badge and the badge alone to buy 154. Now 154 looks like this yellow goalkeeper kit would look so good with this Feyenoord team. So if you guys want to, an option and something you can show you is to use a 154 instead of the 80 or a 33. So your goalkeeper kit options, depending on what you guys bought in when you bought your paints, you can either go with a 154 yellow, which is what this guy here is wearing. You can go with a matte 80, which is what both of the other guys are wearing. Okay, or you can go with the matte 33, which is what colour the shorts and the socks are on these guys. So those are your colour options. As I said, I'm not painting another green goalkeeper because I don't need another green goalkeeper with black shorts and socks. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk you through something that may happen when you are painting with them. Now, my matte 80 and my matte 154, both very, very thin and watery paints. Now, doesn't really make a difference. As you can see, the paint finish is still pretty good on this one. The yellow has a little bit more of a sheen than the green does. That's not the point though. The point I want to make to you about these is that when you paint it on, you'll end up with a very watered down colour as to what this true colour is at the end. Hopefully this is going to make sense. So the best thing to do is to paint your goalkeeper with one layer first. Don't go for full thickness. Don't go full hero mode and look for true colour straight away. Give him a layer with whatever colour you're using. So in this one, give him a layer with the green. Being particularly careful when we're painting down the inside of the arms. The best way to do that is to get your brush on there and just leave it on there. Don't take it off. Just drag it, drag it, drag it, drag it, drag it down, and then come around. Same again on the other side. Paint in, start in the middle, start in an easy area where you know you're not going to risk contacting his hands or his head. Come down, leave it on, leave it on, leave it on, leave it on, and spread that paint around. The only other thing you're going to need to be really, really careful of, especially if you've got a paint like mine that is really watery, is it has a tendency to follow little valleys and little indents in the acrylics. It's like water. They have very little friction and resistance. So there's a couple of little areas. If you've got too much paint on your brush and you come round, it will seep down into those little grooves. It will come down these plastic lines. Now, it's not going to be a massive issue on this team because we're painting the shorts black. But if you decide to potentially leave yours white, you might want to have white shorts in your goalkeeper, then you don't want to have a colour coming down into there. So just be aware of that. So give it one layer, normal paint with it. By the time you've done this, because it's quite a thin paint, and if you're like me and you're working under daylight lamps and the heating's on because it's a little bit cold and wintry outside, this will dry, in inverted commas, quite quickly. It won't be dry, but it will be dry enough that you can add another layer on top of it to get what I call true colour. So this is 2 layers, this is 2 layers, this is 2 layers, and that's what comes out when you get your true colour. Hopefully that has all made sense. What I am going to show you. Okay, so as I just said, these are not going to be what you guys are going to do. It's just showing you the principle of what you guys are going to do with red if you want to. You are well within your rights, because I think the goalkeeper shirt that actually went with this was all black. But to tie it into the rest of the team a little bit more, you could add some red and white onto the socks as well. So all you would do, and you guys will be using red paint, is just come around, nice thin brush setup, just come around and divide that skin line with your red paint. Again, as I said, I'm using blue. The reason I'm using blue is because this goalkeeper is for a different team. So I'm going to come around and divide skin and sock line. Nice and easy. The only other thing to be really, really careful of with Santiago goalkeepers and this Super Footy versions actually is that the aggression of this sort of curve of the sock is a lot more than an outfield player, so you do have to be a little bit more careful to avoid, and just be careful to follow them curves round and not get sucked into making hoops and things that just don't look to scale. So just be aware that there is a bit more of an aggressive curve around the leg on a goalkeeper than there is on an outfield player. So just quickly, just going to come around and do exactly the same with our blue paint with this figure, but you guys, it will be red. There we go, nice and easy. And then all you want to do is just add in a second one. As I said, we're not going for free hoops on the goalkeeper, or at least I'm not, and I didn't. So all I want to do is leave a white line in between and just come around with our blue to create our sock top on this guy. Awesome, so there we have our goalkeeper, in this case with our two blue hoops around the top. For you guys, hopefully there'll be two red ones. You could, if you wanted to, very similarly to what we did earlier on, I'm just going to grab him and show you. You could go for a sock design like this with your goalkeeper, so one red and one white. It's entirely up to you, or you could just do them all black. That's what I'm sure that kit was. So there's options there available for you if you need them. Now, for you guys, you will be adding black to these socks and black around the shorts. I'm not. I'm going to be leaving these white. But when we paint our socks, what we're looking for is that nice flat brush setup, as we're going to need with our outfielder in a minute. And we're going to start in the middle, bring it down to the boot, and then very carefully bring it up and run it along the bottom of the hoop that you've created. Do it all the way around so you've got a nice symmetrical finish, and exactly the same on the other side. So start in the middle, come down to your boot, bring it up so that your flat edge of your brush is along that blue, and then just carefully bring it round. Obviously for you guys it'll be red, so bring yourselves round, fill it in nice and carefully round here, until eventually what you'll end up with is something that looks like this, with our lovely two red hoops, our black socks, and our black shorts. When it comes to painting the shorts, you just want to bring a little bit of paint in between his legs, and the same on the back, so it doesn't look like he's wearing a skirt. We're now okay, a little Westwood Table Soccer top tip. You guys are about to have your black paint open for a fairly long amount of time to get through 10 figures and your goalkeepers. Black is one of the worst colours for separating, and its matting agent dropping to the bottom of the tin. Obviously you don't want that to happen, because you want your black paint to have a matte finish the same as all the rest. So the first thing you would do, as you would normally do, give it a lovely good stir. Really mix it round so you've got an even consistency throughout. You've got no sort of powdery feeling, sticky residue on the bottom of your tin. And then what I'm going to advise you guys to do, leave the stick in there, don't take it out. Every 10 or 15 minutes, just come round, just give it another little move around the tin, because what will happen is it will keep that matting agent all mixed in there, and you'll get a nice consistent finish. That is the same for any paint that you're going to have open for a long amount of time, or if you've got a paint like my Matte 80 or my 154, which are both fairly watery, loose paints. We want to be mixing these quite a lot to get a nice even sort of coverage and a nice colour finish at the end of it with our matte finish. So that's a little top tip for you. If you're using a colour that you're going to have open for a long time, leave the stick in there so that you can keep moving it around. Or if, like my other two paints there, they're fairly watery, fairly loose paints, then you're going to want to have your stick in and around there to just keep it moving around so that we get a nice consistent finish. Okay, so painting the socks and the shorts in the black on the outfield figures. Brush setup as flat as we can get it. Not necessarily as wide as we can get it, but we want it to be nice and flat, nice and wide. We're going to be working first of all on our socks. So, as has been the case whenever, we're going to start somewhere in the middle. We're going to get some paint on the middle. We're going to come down to the boot line. We're then going to come up very carefully and just try and run our brush along the very bottom of that red line that we created earlier on. Come round again, try and bring it symmetrical, so grab hold of the line you had on the other side. Bring it round. Whenever you go back into the paint, start in the middle so that we don't have too much paint on the brush. Run it around on the sock there. Doesn't matter too much about the boots at the moment, but they are going to be painted in a light brown. So we don't want to have them with too much black on them. I just didn't quite hit my line here, so I need to come up a little bit more. There we go, one sock done. That is the straight leg. It's a little bit easier on the straight leg. And we come to the leg that is off a slight angle. Again, start in the middle, come down to here, bring my paint up to my red line, trace it round. Like that. When we come around the other side, we're going to start in the middle, but we're going to work sort of in reverse. So, because I'm going to flip this in a minute and grab hold of his base, I just want to make sure that my line is even. So if I hold him like this, I can match up to the line that I'd already created around here. Then, when I grab him by the other bit, it's a lot easier for me now to match it up with that line. And all I want to do is just make sure that my bottom red hoop on the sock is as close to being uniform all the way around as possible. And there we go. There we have a set of lovely Feyenoord socks. And just while we look at this, how good would the Feyenoord kit be with white shorts? Obviously this one's got a red line that's on the shorts at the moment, but ignoring that, that'd be a really cool kit, wouldn't it? So if Feyenoord ever wanted a change, they can make a little cheeky change there. So what we're going to come on to now is our shorts. Here we go then. So onto our shorts. Couple of really important key areas that I'm going to highlight during this little section here. Paint setup or brush setup is exactly the same as on socks. Flat, okay, wide. Start easy area somewhere in the middle, and the first thing you're going to do is just bring it down onto the change in the mold line, so the mold line on the shorts, and you're just going to follow that round. there's a little section in the middle of his legs that we're going to come to last. So all I want you to do to start with is just follow that around there. Then we're going to gradually bring ourselves up across the bottom of the shirt, the top of the shorts, to create a nice crisp line. And you'll notice that little red guideline that I had for my central stripe on the half, gone. Black covers it. So that was why I said to you earlier on in the series not to worry about that, because it's not a big problem. Obviously, as I've said again in the series, you want to try and avoid using it, because if you are going to paint half teams, for example Blackburn Rovers, they've got white shorts, so you don't want to be bringing your blue line onto the shorts unless you're going to paint them white, which nobody wants to paint white shorts when your figure's already white. This is the other little area where you're going to need to be a little bit careful. On a Santiago figure, the back of the shorts, on his left hand side, there's a really sharp, pointy sort of mould line. It's just in here. You'll know it when you see it on your guys' figures, but what can happen is, because it's as pointy as it is, it can separate your bristles, and if it separates your bristles, it might end up pushing black paint where you don't want it. So just around in this area here, just be really, really careful with the amount of pressure that you're putting on your brush, because what you don't want to do is put too much paint down there and it run onto where your legs are, because then you'll have to try and cover it up. So yeah, just be aware of that, and then all you want to do is bring yourself around. The back of the figure, the short line and the divide between the shirt and the shorts is actually more obvious. So it's a little bit easier to trace it and follow it round than it is on the front. So we're going to come around, we're going to grab the paint from there, and we just want to follow that shirt line round. What we might need to do in a minute is just go around the front to even it up, because like I said, it's a lot clearer on the back of the shirt. So real nice in there. We're going to come down, we're going to fill in whatever white space we've got left, being particularly careful around the edges, because what we don't want to do is get loads of paint onto our legs. So now we have the basics of the shorts and the socks done. This is a little area you're going to need to be careful of. What I'm going to do is just give my brush a little clean here. What we've got in between his legs is it almost looks as if he's wearing a skirt, okay? Nice and easy to fix. Get your brush into a flat again, twist it so that it's on its thin edge, and just gently put a little bit of paint in between his legs like this, and then what you want to do is just blend that around. I don't ever put it all the way in between my player's legs. The reason for that is because if you put too much paint through there, you end up with paint on the inside of his legs and it looks strange. But visually now, if you're looking at him head on, it looks like his shorts go all the way around. It's all about the visuals, not trying too much and too hard. Do it for the back of him. I'm going to pop him out of his base so that you guys can see this a little bit easier. So in there, principle is exactly the same. For the back of the figure, what we need to do is just run a little bit of paint in there, and then all we need to do is blend it in so that it matches our other figures. And we're going to pop him back into his base there, and there we have where we're going to be at the end of this episode in terms of So here they are then. These are all the Feyenoord figures I've created in the last couple of weeks. The guys in the foreground on the front right are the guys that I made as backups. You've seen me paint the one who is on the front left just in here today with his acrylic white collar and his acrylic stripes around his socks. The original guys are all here. Now you can see different angles of these from the sides, the back and the front, and I think you'll agree these figures now are really coming together and starting to look absolutely awesome. So that is it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, there is going to be a subscribe button in the middle. On this side of the screen, the rest of this series, the Painting Academy, sponsored by Westwood Table Soccer. And on this side of the screen, there are going to be other Subbuteo painting tutorials. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in the comments. Get to us on Twitter. You can get to us on Instagram directly through our website. You can get to us through email. So many different ways. All those links are down in the description. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. If you haven't already yet, please click on the subscribe button over here. Until the next one, stay safe.